So hello guys, it's time for another story time. This was also not the original video that was going to go up this week, but I realized that I could really use an easy video to make sure that Wednesday's just set to go. So that way, next Wednesday, well, the day this is going up, I can have a really heavy duty editing day because the next few videos I have to edit, I actually have to do a lot of editing. There's some pretty long videos that I did with my husband. There's some other longer story times. There's some collaborations, and there's another D&D video that I actually want to try my best to edit instead of just a straight stream rip. So because of that, Mama could use a little bit of time, and this is a story I've talked about in my streams, and I've told my friends, and I realized, holy crap, I should tell you guys because this happened to me recently and it's kind of irritating. So let's just get into it. Also, update on my last video. I should have said this earlier. I thought it was given with the fact that I said I was feeling better and I edited it, but I'm feeling better from, drinking 3 to 4 cups of apple cider vinegar. So I'm a lot better now. Don't worry about me. I was just a big dumb. But, I will say, however, this video is technically sponsored by myself. I have some new D&D stickers in my Etsy shop. I'll have them linked down below if you guys would like to support the channel and the Gorl and get yourself some cool D&D content. I've been talking about how I wanted to revamp my Etsy store for a while, and I'm slowly doing that now. So these stickers are 3 inches, waterproof, weatherproof, and vinyl. The green D&D Addict stickers, which I'll put them on screen real quick, those are clear vinyl, while the I Need Healing Health Potion one is on white vinyl. Again, just testing the water, seeing what I like and don't like. So, yeah, if you want to give those a check and support, those would be great. Now let's get into the video. So, I've had terrible experience with doctors. Just terrible experiences with doctors. And I kind of want to share it. So recently, by recently I mean it was last year, but on top of everything else happening, a lot of other stuff ended up happening. But little backtrack, I will be talking about people who are born naturally female genetic problems here, just so that, that way other people understand, because some people don't want to hear that stuff. Some people get a little offended when you talk about that stuff, so I'm giving that warning now. I am going to be talking about biologically born female reproductive problems, so that way we're nice and inclusive here, because hi, if you're new here, I am a very proud member of the LGBT plus community. And because of that, I don't want to upset anybody, and I want to be as inclusive as I can be. So, when I first awakened, I do identify as a cis female, though. When I first, finger quote, became a woman, I was actually very young. I was still in elementary school. I was anywhere between 9 to 11 when I got my first menstrual cycle. And besides probably my very first cycle, I have had excruciating pain for all of them. And I have also been irregular my entire life. So it wasn't until I was about 13, 14 that I actually ended up going on the pill, because the pain was only getting worse the older I got. And it was getting to a point where my periods would be so irregular to where I would end up going months without getting it, and then having it for a month straight. And the breaking point was when I was about, like I said, 13, 14. I was in high school at this point, and it wasn't because I had a boyfriend. No shame to people who do get to be on birth control, when they get a partner or something. But that wasn't the reason why. Actually, a lot of people assume that was the reason why, because I did have a boyfriend at the time. It wasn't who my husband is now. I actually had another boyfriend in high school. But it was getting so bad that I would actually have to miss school. I would miss school when I would get my period, because the pain would be so excruciating, and sadly, the cycle would be extremely heavy. It was embarrassing, it was upsetting, and I hated it. I also talked a lot about how I was a very sick kid growing up. This will go into that. And so my mom was realizing that it was getting worse and worse, same with my dad, and they're like, okay, you need to see a doctor, because this isn't normal. You shouldn't be missing school because it hurts to walk, because that's to the extent that it would get for me. I literally would just be in bed and pretty much go to the bathroom. That's like what my first couple days of my cycles would be like. And the breaking point was I had once gone anywhere between 8 to 9 months without getting my period. And then I had it for a month straight, and I actually passed out in a Food for Less. And it was just a big sign that I needed to get something done. Now, to this day, I've technically never been tested for PCOS, but I'm pretty sure I have it. I've also had other uterine problems in the past. I've had cysts, I've had irregularities, I've had to have surgeries at rather young ages, and so it was very, very, very uncomfortable. But there's really not much I could do. Sometimes you literally cannot control the body you were born with, which really, really sucks. And so I went on the pill, and for the first time in my life, wow, I had a period once a month. And I had it be where, I would have like a heavy flow for a couple days, and then for the rest of it, it would be pretty chill. When before it was heavy, 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 it's gone, pretty much. It's like, that's how it always was. I never had like a gradual, like, ironically enough, a gradual grace period with my cycle. It would be heavy, 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 one day of light, and then you're done. And it always sucked, and I realized that was not normal. So I was on the pill for a very long time, and there have been instances, I've also talked about this openly before, I've had to go through different types of medication because some medication didn't work for me, which is why I always recommend, obviously, I live in America, such a great country, and sometimes the generic birth control you get isn't going to work for you. This was the case for me. I went through many different brands before I found one that worked with me. That should be how it is for almost any medication, but, insurances are issues. Doctors are issues. Now, previously, my original gynecologist was a saint. I loved him. He was wonderful. But again, the joys of America, when I ended up getting married, I was no longer on my parents' insurance anymore, and the insurance that I get through my husband does not cover my original gyno that I've had pretty much since I was 13, 14. I had one previously. It was a very terrible experience. I went once, never again, so I don't count it. But with that being said, I was very disappointed that I couldn't do it because I also couldn't afford an out-of-pocket visit just to see a doctor I liked. So it's one of those situations where it's like, all right, it's free and you don't get to pick your doctor, finger quote free, and you don't get to pick your doctor, or you're paying out of pocket for American medical prices. Which am I going to realistically choose? You can't really afford to be picky unless you have a lot of money, which we don't have. Not to say that we're suffering, it's just we definitely don't have out-of-pocket money, doctor money. And so I remember being really nervous because I'd had my gynecologist for years and I loved him. And so I had to go through a new doctor. And now a quick sidetrack. I have also had pretty bad experiences with doctors growing up. I am a bigger woman. I've never sugarcoated that I'm not. But when I was younger, at my lowest weight, pretty much my entire childhood, I had my doctor tell my mom I was obese. Like, an obese. Not overweight, not getting there. I was obese my entire life. And so because of that, I actually experienced a lot of fat phobia. We're not going to talk about that discrimination right now. But what ends up happening is I used to think it was kind of BS until I really realized it happened to me. Because I'm like, oh yeah, I am fat. So that just makes sense. Okay. All these issues I had, yeah, it's because of my weight, And here's the thing. Even when I was most active, most healthy, and most that, I was still a chunkier girl. Hence why I'm pretty sure I have PCOS, because it is harder to lose weight and easier to gain weight. There's a lot of other issues going on, but that's kind of like the bare bones term of it. It has to deal with your ovaries. So, I remember when I ended up getting a doctor when I was an adult because I was having issues with my heart. And every doctor I'd had was, it's because you're fat, it's because you're fat, it's because you're fat. Like, they said it nicer, but that's what they were saying. They're like, well, it's because you're fat. And they had this one doctor who gave me a full physical, which is really sad that it took me like pretty much until my adulthood, my early adulthood, to get a full-on physical. I'd never had one previously because I was always told you weigh too much. For them, like, I didn't get a breathing test. I didn't get a sleep study. Very rarely would they do blood work. It was always just, yeah, you need to lose weight. Yeah, tell my parents she needs to lose weight. And so when I had this physical done where was I? Sorry, I got a phone call for that little cut edit there. But, first time getting a physical done. So I had a doctor, my newish doctor, don't have him anymore. I have another new doctor, but he's also very understanding. And he was very concerned, and he's like, you have a heart condition. And I'm like, oh, great. My weight gave me a heart condition. That's lovely. And he's like, no, 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 no. Your weight doesn't help, but you got this as a side effect of a medication you took as a kid. And I was like, excuse me? And he's like, yeah, it says here in your file that you used to have asthma and you were on an experimental medication inhaler. And I was. I genuinely don't remember what it's called right now. I'm very sorry. It's literally at the time of recording this. I graduated high school 10 years ago. I cannot imagine what medication I took when I was in elementary school. I'm not going to know the name. And I even tried asking my parents, and they're like, I don't know, you were on a lot of inhalers because you had severe asthma as a kid, which I did. I had very severe asthma as a kid. And so, which I outgrew. And so my doctor was like, yeah, no, this medication has an extreme side effect of weakening people's hearts. It tends to, you'll outgrow the asthma faster, but your heart will get weaker. It's a side effect that happened years later. And I was like, what? So all the times that I ran the mile in high school and I tasted pennies, that wasn't because I was fat. That was because my heart was giving out. And he's like, yeah, that's really bad. Your doctors were terrible. They should have had you get a physical when you were in middle school to have this tested. There are so many other things that could have happened. And my doctor pretty much told me it was a miracle I was alive. Again, my weight did not help the heart issue. So don't take it as, because I'm not one of those bigger people that's like, I'm perfectly healthy at the weight I am, because I know I'm not. But it's one of those things where it's definitely not helping the situation. Didn't cause it, not helping. Very big difference. I'm working to change that. And I think other people should as well. So, but I remember being so relieved, and this doctor pretty much told me like a diet plan at the time, and told me, he's like, listen, with your body type, with your metabolism, with everything else going on, you will never be skinny, but you can be healthy. And I was like, it's really sad. It's really sad it took like 24 years to be told that. 24, 23, I don't remember what age I really was at, but I was an adult. I remember I'd already been like, I was either partly working at the time or still in college, I can't remember. But I remember just being there and being dumbfounded and crying because I felt so cheated. I felt so cheated that, I was just told my whole life, yep, all these problems because you're fat. Just stop being fat. When it turns out it was a medication that I took as a kid. So that was fun, and that definitely didn't help with the menstrual cycle stuff. So because of that, I did grow kind of a detest towards doctors when I learned that. And I always would get kind of like skeptical if I'd have to get a new doctor, and they wouldn't do tests because I was a bigger bitch. They wouldn't do that. They would be like, well, you're pretty big. I'm like, yeah, I'm not blind. I know I'm a big bitch. But so that being said, when I got my new insurance and got my new doctor, I was nervous. I was nervous and upset. So I ended up going to my new doctor. Ended up going great. My new doctor on my insurance, beautiful saint, love him. He's great. He's helped me with diet stuff. He's been helping me right now trying to get on antidepressants and anxiety medication because I've finally been diagnosed with it properly. And I'm working on a way to better my own mental and physical health. That being said, let's get into the meat of the story. I know I've been rambling a long, but you needed the context to understand where I'm going from. So, talked about my irregularity in periods. We've talked about the fact that I've gone through lots of birth controls. We've talked about my fact with doctors, right? We're going to go to the new gyno. So, my current GM was not my gynecologist, the one that my insurance pays for. And so when I ended up getting him, I was supposed to get a pap smear, which I've never gotten, by the way. I keep trying to reschedule my appointment, and that's really important to get, especially if you're an older lady like me. I'm 28, but yeah, or again, I did it again. If you have uteruses or uteri, you should get a pap smear. I know it can be dysphoric for some people, but please, physical health is just as important, and you don't want to, accidentally find out you have cancer cysts or something, because that is very, very common. So, trying to get a pap smear never ended up happening. And what ended up happening was I had ended up getting in early to mid 2020, we had just gone into lockdown, and I had gotten a call from my new gyno, and pretty much told me, hey, the current batch of birth control you're on is being recalled. There's been issues with it, and you're going to have problems. And so, please inform us when you get your next menstrual period, because then we'll get you your new set of birth control. So that was just a message I got. So I called him back and I was like, hey, it says in my file, I've given you all my medical history. I have terrible experience with hormones. Sometimes I just don't get periods. I don't know when I will not have, I don't know when I'll get a natural period again if I'm off this pill. And my doctor's like, okay, well, it'll be about $200. This is out of pocket, by the way. This is because my insurance will cover some of it, but the rest of it's out of pocket. So this is the price I'd be paying. It's $200 for a blood test to prove you're not pregnant, or $100 for a pee test in the hospital to prove you're not pregnant. And I was like, I don't have that kind of money right now. So I'm going to call in a month when I'm like, hey, it's been 2 months. My period didn't show up. And if you guys didn't know this, my husband and I, while we've been together for 13 years, we are safe when it comes to the bedroom because we don't accidentally want to have an oops baby. So, especially with the fact that my birth control was no longer working, we kind of took extra precautions to be extra safe in our marital fun time. So, there's pretty much no way I got pregnant. And so, 2 months rolled around, called again. I took a pee test from a CVS, and I'm like, hey, the pee test says I'm not pregnant. And they're like, well, until you get your menstrual cycle, we're not going to know for sure. And I'm like, okay, call it 3 months. Same thing. And they give me the same BS answer. I tried getting a different gyno. So they give me a different gyno. Tells me the same BS when I have my shit on file, when I've told them constantly I have irregular periods. So 4 months, 5 months, 6 months skip by. A bunch of my friends know about the time because my hormones are all out of place because 28 and didn't get my menstrual cycle, in 5 to 6 months. So I keep calling and they're like, are you sure you're not pregnant? Are you sure? And they're like, okay, well, if you really want to save money, send us a jar of your pee and a couple pee tests and we'll test it here. And I'm like, are you going to charge me? And they're like, well, yeah, we have to prove that you're not pregnant. And I'm like, I am not pregnant. And I've said this all the time, I know I'm a bigger lady. I think I would have some sign at 5 months, something that I was with child. Just a little bit, you know what I mean? Physically, maybe not, but I'm sure there'd be other stuff going on. And they're like, well, we just don't know. We just can't be sure that you're not pregnant. And I'm like, well, okay, great. Gotten down to 6 months, or 7 months. Still no period. I'm extremely irritable. My hormones are all out of whack. My mental health is all out of whack. I'm going through so much other stuff right now. And I finally went to my husband and I'm like, I'm caving. I'm giving him the money because they are not going to give me the birth control. They are literally not going to give me the birth control. I've gotten 2 different gynos. They told me the same BS. And I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. And so, because especially, again, if you don't know how menstrual periods work, it's the inner uterine lining of someone's uterus being cleaned out, pretty much. So I've got months worth of gunk that needs to get cleaned out because I didn't have a normal menstrual cycle. So, gross, gave you the warning to start with. That's kind of how it works, and that's why buildups happen. So, I finally said, screw it. And I caved, I went in, I took the test, and they're like, well, it seems like you're not pregnant. And I'm like, gee, who would have guessed? And then they gave me the new pills, and that following month, I got my first period in, almost half a year. And, it was painful. It was painful. It was terrible. But then I'm back to normal. I'm back to other things. And I was talking to that same guy, the second one at this point. And I was thinking about getting, for personal reasons I won't go into, I cannot get an IUD. But I was like, okay, maybe I can get, the shot or that thing that they inject into your arm or something. So I pretty much don't have to worry about this right now, and I don't have to worry about having an oops baby because financially right now, my husband and I, we can't afford a kid. Love to have a kid if we could financially support one, but it just ain't in the cards right now. And I'm very much of an adult to acknowledge that that's a possibility. And so they're like, okay, well, we'll get you off the birth control, and then we'll wait for your next menstrual period. And I'm like, hey, you have my file that I literally went almost 9 months without getting it. Last time I was off the pill. So, what are my options here? And it's like, well, stick with the pill or wait. Or pay another $100 to $200 to, prove that you're not pregnant again. So, I'm currently stuck on the pill, a little irritated. But, the joys of having a uterus in America and dealing with insurance BS and the medical system. Really sucks. But I wanted to come here and just tell you that story. So if anybody else relates or has other issues or who knows, sexism or other issues too, going on with doctors. Because, I don't know, the older I get, the more I'm noticing it, I guess. and it's just making me mad and irritated. So that's where my little rant is today in my story time. I wish I had a good note to land on. I don't. I'm on birth control again, and I eventually have to see that doctor and my other doctor, and it's irritating. But yeah, that's all I gotta say about that. So hope you guys enjoyed. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and comment for the butt if you can't think of anything else, because that really does help the algorithm. I love you guys so much. I make a new video every Wednesday. Thank you as always to my Patreon patrons. Without you guys, this literally wouldn't be possible. And I will. See you next time. Bye-bye, guys.